Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our webinar, Post-Pandemic Airports, Operational Challenges and Innovative Solutions, that will be delivered by our colleagues and world business partner, Munich Airport International. In this case, our colleague, Pietrik Boyer, will show us some innovative strategies for airports to adapt to the new normal and conquer operational channels in the post-pandemic era. As I said, Pietrik Boyer will be giving the presentation today. He is the Senior Airport Operation Expert from Munich Airport International. And before starting, I would like to give some housekeeping instructions for the interpretation. As you could notice, we will have interpretation for this webinar as well. It's very, very easy. You have to select, click in the icon that looks like a globe and select the channel of your preference, either English and Spanish. And sometimes it will overlap the voice of the speakers and the interpreter. In that case, you have to select the last option that says unmute original audio. And in that moment, you will receive only one voice from the speaker, either the speaker or the interpreter. As you can notice as well, the chat function is not enabled. So for the Q&A session that we will have at the end of Pietrik's presentation, we will kindly ask you to send your questions to the email address that you see on the screen, info@aci-lac.aero. And we will make the questions at the end of the presentation. I forgot to mention that this webinar will be the first of a series of webinars that we are giving in collaboration with our business partner, Munich Airport International, and we will send you the details for the coming webinars in the coming weeks. Without further ado, I will pass it to Pietrik for the presentation. And thank you, Pietrik, for your time preparing the slides and sharing your experience.
Thank you, Francisco. Bonjour, buenos dias, good morning to everyone, and good afternoon, because I heard that it's not only people from Latin America and the Caribbean region. So I'm very pleased, as Francisco said, to kick off those webinars in partnership with Munich Airport and ACI Latin America and Caribbean. So today, I think it's a very important topic because we are seeing the opening of the skies again. So this is very important to understand what we can do to make it a success, but what we can do as well to make the airport more resilient in case of the next pandemic, for example. So I should have the control. So let me see. Yes. So basically, we will be talking, I will be talking, but also hopefully we get questions. We actually got some questions, but I will already clarify during the webinar. So I will start with a very brief introduction about Munich Airport International, the road to be today a global airport operator. Then I will discuss about the passenger experience challenges when we faced the pandemic. But not only passenger experience, there were as well operational challenges. So I will also discuss about some of them. And then how can we become a pandemic-proof airport? So this is important. I mean, you will see in the slides that pandemic always happened. It was the first time that the Western countries have been hit so hard, but definitely this will happen again. Hopefully not so soon. But there are ways to become pandemic-proof, and we will present the roadmap. And then the last item, which I think is the most interesting part, is to understand which innovations we can use to make sure that, as I said, we make the opening of the skies again a success for the airport, for the passengers, but for all stakeholders. So looking at Munich Airport International, so we are actually part of Munich Airport Group. Munich Airport is only and first Europe 5-star airport. So I'm very pleased to say that even during the pandemic in 2020, we got renewed the 5-star ratings. So first time we got it was in 2015, It has been renewed in 2017, and the 5-star experience has been as well recognized, as I said, in 2020. But moreover, we are as well the best European airports. And I think it's something important to know is out of 15 times, 1-5, we actually got it for 13 times. So this is a great achievement. And we are the world's best airport within 40 to 50 million passengers. So us, as Munich Airport International, we are definitely using this know-how and knowledge to share the 5-star experience around the globe. So we have developed the international business, and we are now a smart partner, not only for management, but also consulting and also training, as I said, for very ambitious airports. As I said, we are now a global airport operator. The first one with Newark Liberty Airport, Terminal A, which will become soon Terminal 1, and with Sofia Airport, which is the latest achievement. So Munich Airport International is not only the name. We have actually proof records of international projects all over the globe. And again, this is really from different range of services, as I explained, starting from ROAT, and as I said, to different type of consultancy, management and training, and now operation and management. And Munich Airport International is not only a map, it's also something in-house. So we have, and I think this is unique, and I think this makes us unique, is we are actually the 5-star experience of Munich Airport, but we have also experts from different airports joining Munich Airport International. So we have this unique combination of 5-star experience in-house, but also best practices from other airports. And this combination provides this unique portfolio and range of services. Myself, and I'm very glad and grateful to be able to provide you this webinar, because I am actually from Martinique, so within the Caribbean region. And it's a pleasure for me really to be the first to kick off, let's say, this partnership webinars. And quick words about myself. I was actually born and raised in Martinique, and I specialized myself at Cranfield University. And before joining Munich Airport International, I worked again in different regions, Abu Dhabi, USA, France, UK. And now my role is to lead teams, but also to be part of teams to deliver the 5-star experience all around the globe. So let's jump into it. So as I said, what are the challenges? I have traveled actually for many times during the pandemic, and I traveled last week. And even I am a frequent traveler, I have as well a lot of questions. And we have to deal as an airport with all those questions. I mean, again, we are reopening the skies, so passengers will be, we are looking forward to it, but we are looking forward to it with questions. It's not only about COVID, but it's about what is happening in my destination. Maybe I go somewhere, but maybe I will not have a flight back, depending on the different regulations. And I think us at the airport, because we have the first door of departure and the last one when we arrive at the destination, our role is very important. And when I think of passengers, I don't think only to please the passenger, because one happy passenger will definitely provide this feedback to their neighbors, to their families that we are visiting. And this is how we can definitely regain the overall passenger confidence, is to make one passenger happy, knowing that he will be able to spread the word. So as you can see here, this is, I would say, the backbone of the presentation. So this comes from the ACI Global Traveler Survey in 2020. And you can see at the top, in the chain of processes, where passengers are afraid or the most afraid to get contaminated, for example. And you will see that, as I said, this has to be used by airports, because this provides already a part of the answer. How can we focus, let's say, the processes according to the fear of passengers? It's something we really need to understand. And as you can see at the bottom, the majority of passengers, they are actually expecting measures. So we cannot start and just say, it's okay, everyone is vaccinated, so it's okay, we can forget. No, we have to provide measures, and we have to be part of this confidence rebuilding. And as you can see, a large part of the travelers expect masks, and we'll discuss about it, but also a COVID-19 test prior departure. Now there is the vaccine as well, so it's something to include, and as well cleaning measures like hand sanitizer. And as I said, the processes that you see here, this is what we would use to understand which innovations we can implement through the airport process. So here, those are some measures at airports today. I think I traveled, but we need to keep in mind the majority of people, they have not traveled at all for the past year and a half. So we really have to really think of, we are welcoming new type of passenger. So obviously we are promoting social distancing, as you can see, but I will really focus on maybe the top left and the bottom right. So the top left, it's awareness campaigns. So as I said, the majority of passengers have not traveled at all. So we need definitely to let them know what are the measures at the airport. But I guess the question is, when? Do we wait for them to arrive at the airport? I really think we should reach out to them before. And this can be done during the check-in process. This can be done via different online campaigns, but this is definitely something important. And then at the bottom right, I think this is also something very important. It's not only a plexiglass between a passenger and an employee. I think we really need to put the employee first. I mean, we will implement a lot of technology. We will implement a lot of innovation. But the people giving the human touch, when we have stressed passengers, they are the employees. So we need to provide them with the confidence as well that they can come to the airport and they can work feeling safe. So this is very important. It's a point that I think all airports should really think of. How can we as well keep our employees happy, confident, and safe when they come to work? Here we are also some measures, some of the measures. We will discuss about the biometric on the top left in the innovation part. Unfortunately, as well, and I think we will discuss also about it when we talk about operational challenges, the food and beverage, so restaurants, they are closed according to government policies. I'm very pleased to say that now at Munich Airport Terminal 2, some of the shops actually open the past few days. So it shows that we are definitely back to a step-by-step recovery. And as we said, hand sanitizers, we also enhance the cleaning regime. And I'm very proud to say that we have actually the ACI Airport Health Accreditation. And I would say that it's great to see, and I think it's a great example that we should use about this ACI Airport Health Accreditation, because this is something that was developed quick, and at least it gave a baseline for a standardization process for all airports to actually show that they are taking the right measures. So this is actually a question that we received because we know that with the reopening of the skies, some countries, they still ask for COVID tests, others they don't. And I do think that this is also part of the reopening success. At Munich Airport, we have actually a test center, and we are testing arriving passengers there in a specific location. This is free. We are also testing departure passengers with a fee, but as well transfer passengers. So we are really looking at all types of passengers and how can we make sure that they can still provide proof that they are not infected. And again, this is something that we can use commercially, because with passengers coming earlier to get tested, it means that there is an increase of the dwell time. So maybe there are commercial possibility here. But again, I think it's definitely something that will stay, at least for the next month, due to the regulations between countries. So it's very important for airports to be able to provide such facilities. So now I will talk about the operational challenges. So I think we understood that passengers will be, as I said, for me, we need to consider them as new passengers. But what about during the pandemic? What about what were the operational challenges, and how did we do at Munich Airport, but in general as well? Because we had, for the past year and a half, a lot of financial instability. There is a lack of standardization also between countries, between airlines, and as well, we have also a lack of staff. How can we make sure that the staff coming again to work, they have the right licenses, but the licenses will not expire? It's something I will show, but also unpredictability of demand. How can we deal with this? So I will touch base on only few items, but this does not cover all the operational challenges. So I think this topic has not been discussed a lot in the different webinars, but it's something we need to think and we need to take into consideration. Again, keep in mind that we are also planning to be pandemic proof. So this is not something we should forget. This is something we should learn from. So if you see the top right picture, so you can see aircraft part is very nice, very tidy, but then aircraft are blocking each other, right? So how can we make sure that when an airline needs an aircraft, then the right aircraft is chosen, right? So it's something that it has to be reflected into the system. So new stand designation have to be created, for example. As I said, aircraft might block each other. And imagine there is an airline which goes bankrupt. So what do we do with the aircraft? So we do think that the NOTAM publication has to be updated. Something that I read as well about the pavement. Some of the pavement, they are not made to bear such a weight. So it's something to keep into consideration. And the fact that we are not using the runways as often, there is an increase of FOD, of FOD. And then we come to the actually, to maintain a safe airport operation. When we talk about FOD, as I said, it's due to the lack of traffic. But a lack of traffic also leads to an increase of the wildlife hazards. And this is something that airports should take into consideration and to already think about plans to deal with it. As I discussed earlier, there is the licenses and qualifications of staff. So making sure that the resource management system is actually updated to make sure that the staff can still be qualified when we reopen. And the audits as well. So we need to make sure that the airports have the right audits to be able to perform, to operate. So it's something to look at. And the last point, so the last point is something that I've been thinking of. So we know that airports are doing emergency exercises, but following what happened the past year and a half, what about having a pandemic exercise? Maybe once a year, or once every 2 years, but at least to really, I think the key here when I propose this is we need to show the authorities as well that we took measures and we are taking measures to provide a resilient, let's say, air transport, regardless of the pandemic. So it's something maybe to think of, maybe it is worth it, but regardless of this, for the past year and a half, maybe emergency exercises have not been done. So we need to make sure that everyone is still aware about what to do in case of, unfortunately, terrible events, something to keep in mind. And then, unfortunately, being part of Munich Airport International understands really the issues of airports. And we know that airports have been hit quite badly with financial losses. So what did we do? at Munich Airport to minimize the financial losses. So as of today, we have 2 terminals at Munich Airport. As of today, only Terminal 2 is used, and we are closing down some facilities as well. Obviously, the resources have to be reconsidered, but more about how do we adapt, as I said. How do we adapt also with subcontractors, basically? Maybe because there is a reduction of operating hours, so obviously this has to be adapted as well. Looking at the long-term investment, which projects we can delay, which projects actually it's a good opportunity to continue. So this has to be looked at, and this has been looked at as well. And as I mentioned, the long-term aircraft parking. What does that mean for this? So those are really 3 items about operational challenges. They are many, but I think this gives a very broad overview about our airports and what airports should think of. And as I said, I think the goal is for us to become a pandemic-proof airport. People forget. And we know that maybe we will not have a pandemic in the next 5, 10 years, but maybe the next one would be even harder, right? So how can we make sure that we learn from this experience? How can we make sure that we are taking the measures today to handle this better in the future? And I know that is not only the word of the airports. I know airports have been also hit, I would say, by the management of the different authorities, but at least it is our role as an airport to show that we are ready for whenever the next pandemic comes. So as I said, pandemic always happen. We don't know when will be the next one. I said this one has been the hardest. We had 60% of traffic down all over the world. So it's really important for us to really, as I said, to start putting, let's say, measures together. And as I said, it's not only the airports, but we need also to talk about authorities, legislations, basically, to make sure that together we are ready for the next pandemic. So at Munich Airport International, we are actually looking at this, taking a holistic approach. So we are actually looking at, okay, we have put together, we have implemented some measures. Were they enough? Were they good? Can we do better? So this is a status quo assessment. And following this, we can already provide some quick win action plan. Then looking at the status quo assessment, what can we do better? So we know what we have done, but what can we do better? So this is where the operational process analysis is happening. And this is where the process re-engineering is also happening, basically. And I think as well, whenever we decide to change a process, to develop a new process, there is definitely a strong link with the airport planning, whatever it is, long-term design, medium-term design, or short-term design. And I personally think, and following the innovation that I will show, that the airport design will change in the future. But still, going through this holistic approach, this is something to take into consideration. And finally, when looking at all the new technology, as I said, all the new processes, we need to have a long-term roadmap to make sure that we understand the integration. Okay, so what is the road to recovery? So as I said, those are the different steps that we are taking. And as I said, the most important part is to put together a roadmap, basically, to really understand how all of this can be integrated together. And I think this is actually a very good understanding about a very good transition to the innovations for a pandemic-proof future. So this part, I would really take my time, because what I want to do here is to really think about what can be done post-pandemic. And I know that we are talking a lot about innovation, about biometrics, about reduction of touch points, Airport 2.0. But something I've been thinking of is definitely For airports, this might be an innovation. But I think this is very important to understand that we are actually talking about common use technology here. People, and especially me, I have been using my smartphone, in a way that I would never use it without the pandemic. So it's very important to understand that we are actually, the goal is definitely to use this new behavior to implement new processes and within the current processes. So the goal is not to change everything, but how can we integrate what people have been using, basically, to make it better, safer, but I would say to ease the travel of passengers. So I think for me, the key word here is common use technology. So as I said, I would use the ACI global survey to really understand what can be done. I know there have been a lot of webinars about digitalization. So what I've tried to do here, I tried to think I am the passenger. I didn't fly for the past 2 years. I'm excited to travel. What can be done, basically. And I tried as well to understand what will be the journey in the next 5 years, 10 years. So what I will ask everyone is to really, let's think we are the passenger. And let's really imagine together what will be the innovation. So some of them are already implemented at Munich airport, but also at other airports, and I will mention those, but some are purely visions. So the first one, on the way to the airport, you can see that it's only 7% of people thinking they can get infected there. However, I think it's one of the most important steps because the digital journey starts at home. We know that people, when they are at home, they are in a less stressed environment than when they come to the airport. In the airport, you have a lot of noise, you have a lot of people around, and I think it's very, very important to understand that at home, people can prepare properly their trips. They can really take the time to prepare, to have visibility, and this is what we need to provide them. So people are used now, they are used to online check-in, which is good, but then the biometric. Hello? So the biometric registration, this can be done also at home. Francisco? Hello? Francisco? No?
Yeah. Sorry?
Yeah. No, I can hear you. So I wonder if you had a question.
No, sorry. You can go ahead.
Okay, not a problem. So basically, as I said, I think for me, this is the most important part. So people can actually register from home. And something maybe to think a little bit out of the box. So why not? Because now they can already book parking at home. Why not provide them with the possibility to book for security screening slots? And again, let's think where in other sectors that this is happening. So this is not for security screening, but we know today that when you go to a museum, when you go to, I don't know, a park, you can book a specific time and you can jump the queue. So why not together with the security company, with the authority to provide such service? And something as well out of the box. So, and this is actually something that can boost the commercial revenue. Going through this, why not giving the possibility to passengers to actually order what they want to eat already? And this is happening today in an airplane, where you can book in advance the type of food that you want to eat, basically. And this can promote what people have known today, which is a click and collect. And I think it is something that we should really think of. Because again, when you're a passenger, you're checking online, you register your biometric details, then you can book your screening slot. You know already what kind of restaurants you have, so you can book, definitely. And then you can have a tour of the airport. Why not? And what I would say for the security screening slot, if we think as well of other sectors, now we have the possibility to know if you go to a shop, to a mall, what is a peak? So people can decide to go off peak if they want to do some shopping. So this is what I talk about security scanning slot. And something that I think is very interesting is the last point. It's to have the bags to be picked up from home. And I think it's even more interesting when you look at really the electrical vertical takeoff and landing. So if people are not aware of this, it's more air taxi. And this is something in motion now. So maybe there is a mix between this and the fact that your bags will go another way. So you don't have to carry your bags with you. And even now for cruise, for example, we know that there are possibilities where people can go to the airport by bus and the bags, we are going another way. So definitely, I think to travel without bags is something, not to travel, to go to the airport without your bags is something that will definitely happen in the future. So now you have done all your registration. So you know, you have visibility, you have control, you know what will happen at the airport, and you come less stressed. So looking at the next step, when you check in. So now you have done your registration for biometrics. So you can come and use your biometric process to check in. So that way you do not have to use your passport, you do not have to use your boarding pass. Your biometric identity will actually be the pass for you to check in. And if you have your bag with you, then you can drop off your bag. And in Munich, we have actually started with Star Alliance on specific slides, biometric identity. And with this, you can check in, go through security and board with only your biometric ID. And something even more interesting is you can scan your face, keeping your mask. And I think it's as well something important to keep in mind, because then it stops passengers to touch their mask and it's easier. I mean, I saw, for example, when I traveled, I had to take off my mask, and this is definitely a step on, let's say, another step to do. But also, I would say the confidence is not as good as if we have to keep your mask. And let's think as well of, as I said, digital about vaccine or PCR test. When I traveled last week, I had to show a paper, even if it was on my phone, but it was not possible to scan. So again, it takes time. Remember, passengers, they have not flown for the past 2 years. So they will definitely be a little bit lost. And we want them to avoid to show as much paper as possible because we want to reduce the contacts. So this is more for the short term, hopefully, but it's something that we need to think of. How can we quickly, and I know this is happening, and we have different paths out there, but it's something definitely that should be done quite quickly. And then when I think about out of the box and in the future, when you have checked in, then there is a confirmation about your security screening slot. And even better, you have checked in, so there is a notification going to your restaurant, and it will tell your restaurant, you are coming in 20 minutes. So then your restaurants know when to start preparing the food. Again, this gives control, visibility to the whole chain of events. Looking at passport and security control. So I travel quite a lot, actually, even before COVID, obviously more. And I traveled last week and I just laughed at myself because I forgot 2 things. I forgot to take off my belt and I forgot to take out my laptop for my computer, for my bag. And I'm talking here as a frequent traveler. So imagine people who they have not traveled for the past 2 years and 3 years. So definitely signs are very important. And I would say even the people touch. People touch to guide people. This is very, very important. So as I said, with Munich, you can use biometric to enter security area. So it's definitely something that will be used as well in the future. With your slot confirmation, then you can go to the right queue. So it's not about jumping the queue. It's about you have been proactive. You have been planning your trip. The airport, they have even provided you tips and recommendations at what time you have to come. So then you can go to the right queue and your process can be done quite quickly. This is a process that we can maybe compare to pre-check in the US. So as I said, I forgot to take off my to take out my laptops. So my bag went through the machine, and obviously it has been secondary checked and has to go through the machine again because my laptop had to be out of the bags. So at Munich Airport, what we are doing to stop this is we are trying a new technology, basically. So when you come, you don't have to take out bags, liquids. 4 people can actually take out their stuff. And this is obviously the throughput is much better. The experience is much better. And again, the contact is also less. So this is easier, smoother, and this makes the journey better for passengers. Especially we know that security control is the most stressful point for passengers. And again, I really like this idea, so I will just continue with my thought. When you have been through security control, then there is a notification to the restaurant. Mr. Voyer is there in 5 minutes. Please start preparation of the food, for example. And this is good because then the restaurant, they know when to prepare, so they don't prepare in advance in case the passenger don't show up. And once the passenger show up, then he knows that his food is ready. And we can go to the next item, commercial areas. So the food is ready, so you can do a click and collect process. And obviously the payment can be done in a touchless way. So actually Munich Airport is the first European airport to have introduced a PayPal QR code system. So it's totally touchless. And this was last week or 2 weeks ago. So again, looking at innovation. So definitely we are going toward this. I do think, again, giving the option for passengers to book in advance at home or even on the way to the airport can boost, I would say, the commercial revenue. And today, what is happening at specific airports is actually robots are delivering food to the gates, for example. But something as well that I know, one of them is it's very difficult for passengers to download the airport app. So why not using a QR code at the airport with a list of restaurants, the list of menu, and we can choose from there. I know that in some airports, you can do that at the lounge now, where you can scan a QR code and the food, you select your food and your food is brought to your table. So there are ways definitely to use what people have been using for the past 2 years to make it better. And something also interesting is why not push up notifications for smartphones, for smartwatches as well, but looking at also interesting offers. So bathrooms, they are very important. So especially people, this is where they see the highest possibility to get infected. So in a way, we need to provide obviously contactless infrastructure. We need to increase the cleaning frequency, but we need to let passengers know about it. And we need to link the cleaning with the feedback from passengers. But again, awareness is important. It's important to tell passengers when we come to the bathroom, when it has been cleaned, when is the last time, and so on and so forth. So while they wait at the gates, again, digital notification. And I'm not talking about a notification on the screen. This is known. But how can we use a smartphone? How can we use the smartwatches to get not only real time, but real location? So you get a notification on your smartwatches or on your smartphone. I don't have a smartwatches on your smartphone to say you are at this point. It will take you 10 minutes to go to your gates and your boarding starts in 20 minutes. Again, visibility and control. This is very important. And then following the sad events of COVID-19, it's even more important to create relaxation and entertainment areas. As you can see at the bottom, this is for Munich Airport, because then passengers, they don't feel like they are in a crowded environment. And then when boarding, again, if I take the example of Munich Airport, with your biometric identity, you can just board the aircraft without showing any passport, any boarding pass. And if needed as well, the duty-free can be brought to the gate pre-boarding. And then if you are somewhere enjoying the airport facility, then you can get a digital notification to say your boarding started. And why not? Why not thinking about, since you are in the seat at the front of the aircraft, your boarding will start at this moment. So that way we can actually spread passengers when they go to the gate. And then we are ready to take off. As I said, for me, I really see those innovations as key to the success to people confidence, I would say. And I think something that I hear all the time is about innovation. It's about new technology, but those technologies, they are there. It's up to us as an airport, as airports, to use them, to make use of them. And I know the airports, they are not only there. It needs a lot of discussions with the partners. I really liked the discussion between Heathrow and British Airways. I'm not sure if you saw it, but it showed that for the success of the opening, we must discuss with our partners. This is not going to work if everyone stays inside. And as I showed you, the key of the success, especially when you look at where passengers think they will get contaminated the most, this happens where we are the most, let's say, stakeholders. So this is very, very important that we talk to our partners, to our stakeholders, and that together we can define the right innovation for the airport. So I would say thank you. Thank you for listening to me. I hope that this has been useful to you. In case you have further questions, please feel free to reach out. Me and my team and the team, we will be more than happy to answer. And if I cannot answer all questions, I will definitely get back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Pietrick, for your presentation. Definitely we will share the presentation with the participants later today. I will move to the other slide for them to remember the email address to send the questions. We have received some. I will ask you the first one. And I think it was based on the latest slides that you mentioned. And it says, if passenger processes are created more efficient, are more efficient, is there a risk that non-aeronautical revenues will drop because of passengers spend less time at the airport?
So I think, as I said, I think, yes, innovation will be there. And yes, it might be quicker, but as an airport, we do have the possibility to still guide the airports. We still have the possibility to tell them when to come. As I said, if we think of the security screening slot, for example, we want them to come before the peak. So maybe earlier than usual. And there are ways as well, when they book their parking space, that we give them a time to come and park their car. So there is definitely a way to mix innovation. And actually, I would say the contrary, commercial revenue increase possibilities. And this is how airports, as I said, should really think about what can we do to still provide some visibility and control to the passengers, but at least we are steering them to come at the right time.
Thank you, Pietrick, for your answer. We have another one. You mentioned about the pandemic proof process. There is a question of how can a stakeholder be integrated and motivated to support this process, the pandemic proof process?
As I said, it will not work alone. This is not possible. I mean, we saw that during the pandemic, actually airports were actually, let's say, dependent of the regulations of the authorities. So it's something that we need definitely to integrate partners. And I gave the example, for example, of Heathrow and British Airways, but this is the case also at Munich Airport with Lufthansa. It's very important, and I would say to even create this task force, this reopening task force, and to give the goal everyone wants to make the reopening a success. And I think this reopening task force between all stakeholders, then the goal should clearly be stated to see what we want, how we want it, and then to use this momentum, because again, everyone wants passengers back. So to use this momentum, not only on the short term, but also on the medium and long term, to really create this partnership for sure. And maybe silos will still happen, maybe people will forget, but it's the role of the airport as as the owner of the infrastructure to be the leader, to be the one to give this energy, to work together, to provide this success factor for sure.
Thank you. We have another questions on the passenger journey steps that you share with us. And this is a question, I think, from an airport operator that is asking, what are these investments, to improve the passenger journey, especially now with the pandemic, and what will be the phases that the airport should focus first?
I would say each airport is different. Why each airport is different? Because I would say the type of passengers also is different. So I think the first step is to understand who are your passengers, basically. For example, they are what we think is business travels will not come back as quick as leisure, but really to understand who are your personas, basically. And then from this to really then focus on what I said, the airport processes, and see what is the first one, the priority to start with. I think we cannot provide a single answer because each airport is different, each type of passenger is different. But I would say step one, understand your type of passengers. Understand then what is the priority, because now with the ACI global survey, we know where passengers they are the most afraid of. But also something interesting is when you have your type of passengers, when you have the airport processes, then understand which process will require the least investment, because we know that airports, they have cash flow issues, basically. And this is something that I think is very important. All the innovation that are presented, some of them, as I said, they are already in place in different airports. But what we need to understand is we don't want to change everything. We want to integrate those common use technology, not innovation, common use technology, into the current processes. And I think according to where each airport is already in the, let's say, in the journey of the future, then this will be different. So I would say first step, understand passengers. Second step, understand where you are today, and then you can define your priority.
Thank you, Patrick. We have another one, and it's related to passengers with reduced mobility. And the question is, what kind of innovative approaches can be adopted for these kind of passengers, PRM, passengers with reduced mobility?
Yeah, so this is actually a very important point because PRM, especially in some countries, we know that elderly passengers will be more and more important. So I would say those are maybe not the ones to use maybe smartphone or smartwatches. So I think definitely this human touch will be very much important. So I would say, how can we make them feel more secure and more safe? And I would say this would come in some part, to some extent, to a better training of employees, for sure. But again, as well, of a better, let's say when we go to security, how can we make it more smoother for this? But as well, what we do, for example, in some of the Munich airports, is to basically think about maybe a specific area for them to check in, a specific area as well to wait when they go airside. Because in some airports, for example, they are still waiting at the gate. Maybe we can provide a more, let's say, not only secure, but a more relaxed location for them. And then how can we make sure that they are handling the best way? I think for me, this is what I see. Is really this human touch should be there. should definitely be more focused on the people, especially when we reopen. So I would say two things is first, let's see if we have the right training, but also to provide the right infrastructure to make sure that they are handling the way they should, basically.
Thank you. We have another one, very interesting question that makes an introduction remark about the technology, the smartphones, and how the smartphones can isolate people to communicate from each other. But taking in consideration that we are in Latin America, you are from the region as well, that especially in our region, people like to have this contact between persons. And what is your opinion on the use of new technologies, all the process that can be done in the smartphones? But we have another cultural things like the human contact that the Latins like, and perhaps another factor that could be the elderly people that perhaps is not very familiar with the use of these technologies, smartphones. What are your thoughts on that? What we can do?
That's a very good point, because I am actually, even if I mention a lot of technology, I am in favor actually of people. Maybe it's because, as you said, I am also from the region, but I do think there are ways definitely to mix both. I mean, for me, definitely the trend, I would say the trend is still for people to use a little bit more their phones. And I would say maybe not to use their phone when they are always at the airport, right? But on key processes, and maybe hopefully we will not use smartphones with biometric. But this is why I talked earlier about employees to be there to be this human touch, employees to be there to provide the quality of service, basically to talk to passengers. So we should not have a checking hall without any employees we can go to. So I think there is definitely the right combination between both. And this is why I think as well for PRM, it's all about the handling of those type of passengers. And this is why I think it's very important to put a focus on how can we integrate the human touch within the use of technology. I don't think this will stop. Even me, I use my smartphone, but I like to talk to someone. I like to have a very nice security officer when they ask me to put my bags on the tray. I like to see the smile of the airline agent when I go to board. I think this will stay there. But I think the trend is going towards implementation of technology. And I think for me, the successful airports have definitely to implement those. But to be successful, I would say is still as well to have this human touch. Is for me, we can do both for sure, and this will not disappear.
Thank you, Pietrik. We have time for a couple more questions. We have received one, and actually this topic was discussed in previous webinars as well, and we have received a lot of questions on this sense. And it says, if after COVID passenger distancing will remain, and how will this affect to the or impact the airport infrastructure? Possible measures that you know that could mitigate queuing?
Yeah. Okay, so I do think as well, especially within the Caribbean, but not only the Caribbean, I mean, in Latin America, all over the world, there is definitely this capacity infrastructure. I think it will be very difficult to keep social distancing at all processes. At security, it might be difficult. At boarding, it might be difficult. And I think this is where I think that we need to see how we can steer better passengers. This is why I talk about security slots. Maybe not for all of them, but at least a good, maybe 20%, 30% will do the job. And the same for boarding, basically. And I know we do not have a lot of space in some airports, and this is how I say it, depending on the airports, you need to really talk with your stakeholders to really understand how can we make sure that social distancing can still happen? And if not, what type of measures we can do to at least make passengers feel better. And queuing systems, definitely. I mean, I haven't touched at all on systems because I really wanted to give the vision, to give the different processes that can be put in place. But it's not only queuing, you can have a heat mapping, for example, as well, that you can really use this and to really use an airport control center to maybe change the signs, to maybe to direct passengers to another checking hall, for example. So there are systems out there, and I think they are very useful because this is how you can get data. But there will be an impact on infrastructure. And that's why I said in the pandemic proof concept, airport planning and airport design is definitely important because it's not only social distancing, but if we have more and more biometric use, if we have more and more self-service backdoor, what does that mean? Do we need so much space for checking counters? Do we need so much space for screening checking area? If we go to screening area, if we go towards maybe slots and boarding, maybe the boarding should be now reviewed to maybe this is where we need maybe some more space, maybe with more commercials, maybe more, as I said, specific area where people can sit and relax. So there are ways to do it. I know for existing airports, it's not that easy, but this is why we provided as Munich Airport International this pandemic proof roadmap, which can help to really understand what can be done, which system to use, and how and when to implement those new measures.
Thank you, Patrick. I think we don't have time for more questions, but if the participants wants to make any question for Patrick, please, you can send it to this email address and we will forward it to him. And as I said at the beginning, we will share later today the presentation as well as the link to access the recording in our YouTube channel. With that, we really want to thank Patrick for your time and Munich Airport International for organizing this webinar with us. As we mentioned, this is the first of many that will come, and we will share with you the information or the invitation for the next webinars in the coming days and weeks. Thank you for your time, and for the participants, thank you for joining. And as I said, we will address the emails, the questions if you have for Patrick, and we will forward it to him, and we will share the presentations and the recording in the coming hours. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Patrick, for sharing your experience, and have a nice day.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.